it must be time for Bead Shop Live. Let me make sure that we're all on, that you're on, that I'm on, that we're all going on live, which I think we are. I hope we are. Are we up? Can you see me? Anyone out there? Yes, there we go. And I think it's connected to our YouTube. And let me make sure. Yep, I can see myself. I can see me, and I think I can see you. There we go. So many screens all the time. So let's just make sure that I can find you here.
Life in the modern age.
It is so true. Well, there we go. Well, I'm Kate Richburg. I'm in front of the camera, and we've got our Brandywin behind the camera, and we've got all of you behind or in front of the screens, right? It's great to see all y'all here today. All right. Well, it's great. We've got everybody up. Everybody's jumping on. Good. Well, great. Well, it's great to have everybody on this busy Wednesday. I think you guys, that spring has actually sprung. Out in California, it's a beautiful day. The skies are blue. No more rain, I hope, maybe. We'll see what happens. But I hope that everyone is, spring is coming to where you are. Though, you know, we do have a lot of watchers from down under, from the southern hemisphere. So I guess if spring is springing for us, fall is falling for you guys. So a big hi to all of our watchers down in Australia. We really appreciate you guys. And the world over, you know, it is great to see everybody that jumps on, you know, and we get so many emails and comments and stuff. And I know in the middle of all of this craziness, when we're chatting, we're doing all this stuff, that I never get to acknowledge people who are jumping in from all over the place. But it's great to have all you guys here. You guys can see Gita is jumped on. Gita is on beadshop.com as our moderator, as Beadshop over on our Facebook page. Janice is moderating over on our YouTube channel. And Gita does this all from Denmark, which is great. Brings us so much closer. And Suzanne, I see that you jumped on from Finland. Hello to beautiful and now sunny, because you're coming out of winter as well. My mom just jumped on. Hi, Ma, from the great Central Valley of California, our bread basket, right? Or our fruit basket, I guess they'd say, right? So it's really cool. I've been thinking about it a lot, that everybody kind of comes together at this bead table, and we come together and create. And, you know, from wherever we are, from the world over, whatever race, creed, religion, outlook, all of that, we all come together at this creative table. So it's really, really gratifying to know that we can make the world a smaller, friendlier, more creative place just through this broadcast that goes out worldwide. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, because it's really cool that you know, we sent a package out the other day. Chris was in shipping, and he was holding this package, and he goes, "This is going to Africa." And we all kind of looked at it, we gathered around, we made sure it was taped correctly and everything. And we thought, wow, this is going halfway across the world. So it's cool to be going out to you guys all across the globe, which is great. I promise I won't tell Kim that you're watching from work. You know, it's probably your lunch hour. I won't tell, right? It's great. So I really am stoked to see all of you guys here, which is great. So let's go ahead and get this show on the road, shall we? It's great to have everybody here, and I know that you guys are loving this project from Janice. I know I'm loving this project from Janice. And so I want to tell you guys a little bit of the backstory of this piece. And I've got some other things that I want to share with you guys too about this. But so when I talked to Janice about doing this piece, you know, we try and schedule our lives 2-3 months out, you know, and trying so we're all together. And so we had found some pearls. I've been looking at pearls, and I said, JP, oh, Janice, we're on YouTube. Janice was just saying, I'm waiting to see you live. I'm there, JP. I see you. I am seeing you there, or I'm seeing us there. So don't you worry. Jump on over and get over there. Get over there, JP. There we go. Perfect. And so, so I told Janice, I said, JP, I want you to create something with our new pearls, and we had just ordered chain, and so we were both kind of like, well, what do you want to make? What do I want to make? And so I sent Janice a few inspirational photos and stuff. And what was really interesting was that she went through several iterations of this piece. And when we turned the camera around and stuff, I'm going to show you guys a couple of things, because we were talking about creativity and about inspiration and stuff. So it's kind of cool to see where this piece came from over here all the way to where it came here, okay? And some of the other things that we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about mixing the chain and mixing chain in all of these different patterns. We're going to talk about some of the thought behind Janice choosing the beads that she chose. So hopefully today, plus we're going to talk about graduating, wire wrapping, how to put all of these multiple strands into a single strand. So we've got a lot to deal with today, a lot. So as we bring this around, I'm gonna place the necklace here, and I'm gonna place this here, and I want to pull up those photos. So bear with me here a second while we do that. We're gonna move the camera around on this shot, and then I'm going to pull up some of the things that Janice sent me. So bear with me here just a second as we move that camera. Look at us being so terribly clever with our camera.
Ooh, yeah, that's looking good.
And there we
Just
go.
a little bit higher.
Great. And Brandon, we can always push this up instead of down so it raises a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So awesome. And this is good. If you guys will bear with me here just a second so you guys can look at all of this prettiness. So can you see here how I've got two things in front of me here as we adjust, everybody. So hang with us, hang tight with us. You can see over to the left of your screen, this is the project map that Janice made for us. When she was doing her designing. And I love this. I love the way that she put this together. I love it. So, and we were talking about it, you know, she sends this over to us. Bear with me here just a second. I'm downloading a couple of things. There we go. Bear with me here. I just want to download that piece there so you guys can see it. And so what Janice did with this piece, there we go, it's nice and bright there, was she kind of made an editorial about this, right? And so when Janice sends us the piece, a lot of times she tapes it to like a cardboard piece or whatever, and or cardboard piece of cardstock, and she writes notes, like she'll write to Karen, hey, make sure that this bead is facing this way, or make sure this is graduated this way, or whatever. And I always think that these are so I don't know, so interesting to kind of see the backstory of what's happening with this, right? I think it's pretty cool. And so I asked her, I said, JP, why don't you do this like an editorial? I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know, I watched or read a lot of Vogue magazine and 17 magazine as a teenager, right? I still read some Vogue, but they always had those layouts of like kicky outfits to wear for the summer, right? And the editors would kind of like write on it and say, hey, pair this top with these shoes or whatever. I don't know. It always made such an impression on me. And so that's how I feel that this is kind of Janice's like editorial, eye and kind of writing her notes down on this. So this is the project map that we're using for this. And you can go to the project at beadshop.com, click on it, and then you scroll down. You'll see this there. I'm going to send this to Drea for the episode notes as well, so you can print this out also to kind of keep on your desk. All right. So it's pretty cool, I think, to kind of have this in Janice's thoughts behind what she's thinking. So I wanted to bring, while you guys are looking at that, so bear with me here just a second, and I'm going to pull up, I want to show you this, and I want to get this to where you guys are. I hope you guys can see this. I don't know if you can. Can we see that, Brandon, without too much?
Yeah.
So Janice sent me a bunch of photos, okay, that she was working with, or that as she was doing the pieces. And I'll also send these to Drea as well, so you guys can see them in the episode notes up close and personal. I didn't want to print them all out because it would have taken a lot of paper. But this is JP's first iteration, okay? And so she used some of the pyrite beads, our new pyrite beads that we got in. She used some mixture of pearls. And over here on this side, you can see she utilized some of that chain. It's the, what's that one called? Longview chain. It's one of our new ones. And so she wire wrapped the spindle beads to that, and she used this really great Green Girl component with it, which is great, which I love. And so when Janice was out, she goes, yeah, I've done this, and she thought about moving some of the dangles around, but I could tell she just was not stoked by it, was not happy with it. And so here are some of then she just started to create some new, let me see if I can get a little smaller there. Sorry about that, you guys. Let me try it this way. Some more strands. She started playing around with wire wrapping pieces here, maybe looking at that big single strand next to it. And you can see as she started, she continued to add another Green Girl pendant here, right? And maybe a complementary necklace to it here. But again, she still wasn't happy with it. Here's the big piece. Again, you can see here she added a disc, which I think is cool. One of our 40 millimeter discs. It might be a 30 millimeter, might be a little smaller one. Wrapped around with some chain. Again, a cool layered piece. But again, she kept editing herself and kept, playing around and saying, what's working, what's not working. Okay, and you can see there's that upload of that disc. And so then, after playing around with some of the different designs, right, she came up with this. And I think what really shows here is, remember how she had her piece, the pearls next to it, the pearl necklace, right? The pearls just looked really heavy. And knowing Janice and how she designs, and I know that you guys can hear her say this as well, she'll say, oh my gosh, that pearl strand needed more air, right? So I've got a bunch of our pearls here, actually. So let me pull one of those out. This one is actually a little bit bigger than the one that she did. But she simply just laid it out just like that. And I know what she was thinking. Oh my gosh, I need more air here. So she added air by wire wrapping. And you can see here on this side up close, we've got the wire wraps linked together. But then also, look at this here. On these here, these are linked, but they're not wire wrapped. Okay? So we're also going to talk about when you might want to wire wrap, when you might want a rosary link, but there's a lot going on in this piece, but they all really play together in the sandbox really, really well. But I thought seeing that evolution, and let me show you this one more time. I want you to kind of fix this necklace in your head. Maybe we could do it side by side. But I want you to see that necklace with this screen side by side here. I don't know if Brandywin, you can make that magic happen, maybe at all. But fix a little bit. You can affix this one in your mind and take a look then at what happened with the outcome. So we've also been talking a lot about on the bead table, on the Bead Shop bead table, about the evolution of design and about cutting things up and not having the fear of cutting things up. You know, if there's anything I can say about JP, she's got no fear when it comes to design, right? And if it's not working, cut it up, right? And so you can see the evolution of what started here, and this is gorgeous. I love it, but when we tried it on, it wasn't hanging quite right. It just wasn't quite right. So she took the elements from here that were working and she translated them into this new piece. And I think this new design is better for it. Now, Janice could always come back, revisit this design, okay, and see, you know, maybe take elements out of it and see how great that this green girl component, how beautifully it works with that long view chain. Well, maybe file that away for a future design, right? Or how interesting these spindle beads work with these copper briolettes, the copper pyrite briolettes, how great they kind of contrast with each other, and also doing that 6mm pyrite round. So you can always take these elements and use them for future reference. No wire wrap is wasted. No design moment is wasted here. And Janice has this photo archive. You know, I have my phone out all the time, and I always document my process, my making process. And you can see that when I post like my metalworking on my Instagram, things like that. I always like to post the process so people can see how the evolution happens. So take your camera out, you guys, when you're designing, and make your own editorial archive. I am just so in love with these. And someone mentioned earlier what an amazing book this would make. And I agree. I want to just look at this piece live and this piece editorialized. I think it's just great. And so I think it's a really fantastic, just editorial about this, right? So let's just start and, start breaking the design down, shall we? Oh, look, here's a Sharps needle for next week. Let me put that over there. Do you find needles in wrong places? Okay, it's funny. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got here. So this piece, it's called Longing. And Janice, and I don't know if you've gone over to the project page, but I want to read a little bit about the thinking behind this piece, okay? And this is directly from the beadshop.com, from the project page over on Beadshop. And so it says, growing up at her mother's vintage jewelry store, Janice touched and cared for old jewelry. She admired the beauty and specialness given to each section of a necklace. Nothing was rushed over. When building Longing, this piece that's right in front of me, Janice took her time selecting beads of many varieties that would complement each other and repeat the shapes of the links of chain. By focusing on building one strand at a time, it allowed her to express a mood and a message. Okay? And this one is based on our Stones of Wisdom project. Okay, so this, I think, is something when you're designing like this, you need to really give each strand it's due. So I'm going to kind of pull it out here, and I want to talk a little bit about the materials that we're using. So we have a brand new clasp that just debuted. And, you know, when Janice and I, it's a serious thing. When we debut a new clasp, it's got to do a bunch of things for us. And I really felt that this little hammered clasp, it's called the Essential Toggle Clasp, and indeed, it's essential, right? It's a great size. You can use it on larger things and smaller things. Let me see. I'll tell you how big it is. The ring itself is just under 13 millimeters on the outside diameter, and this toggle is a little over 18 millimeters, or if we put it in inches, 0.73, so almost 3/4 of an inch across there. Okay, so it's a really, really great size for a bunch of different things. We also loved that it matched all of the rest of the finishes that we carry from Nunn Design. It's just gorgeous, and it comes in copper, which you know is one of my favorites, right? And like Ellen is commenting over on the Facebook page, on the Facebook feed, that it does have a very organic feel to it. The plating on all of these pieces, whether we get them from TierraCast or Nunn, we really do test them, and there are very, very rarely any issues at all with them. So you can be confident in that the plating is going to be heirloom quality and last for a long time. So this is the clasp, and this is a new one that we've added to our bead shop clasp offering. I love it, love it, love it. We also have added, you guys, some new chains, and you know my love affair with chain, and we have so many chains over on Bead Shop. So we've got some new, that one's new, this one is new, and so we've mixed some of our old and new chains in this project. So we've got, and hopefully you can see all of these, I'm sure you can get them. Let me get those clasps out of the way. We've got some new ones. This one is called, what's this one called? It's called Troika, I think, is this one here. And this, Janice specifically chose this chain because it's like two different chains in one, right? It's got this Rollo section right here. Kind of hard for you to see. There we go. It's got this Rollo section right here. And then it's got like these, I don't know, fancy pants like sections here. And so remember when we're choosing chain or when we're cutting up chain, we can use all of these component parts. And remember that, and you'll see it when I kind of start to take these apart, that these chains that we get here are usually connected with a nice heavy jump ring, so there's no need to cut the ring. You can actually open and close the ring to salvage it. So this was a good one. This really, I don't know, dotted a lot of I's and crossed a lot of T's for us because it looks beautiful on its own or in just the sum of its parts. You know, you can use these guys as little components, and then this chain in a long piece. And you can see how Janice did that right here, how she broke up the troika and used that as a focal, and then here as kind of a bridge between, and it's the same chain, which is awesome. We also have this one, this long view. And long view, I was like all about this one when we were reviewing fresh chain for the spring. I was like, this is it. This is it for me. I want to make earring after earring after earring after earring. I can go on and on. I love this chain. I make a handmade chain. I do a chain class, and I teach this link. And let me tell you, making a chain, a hand wrought chain, out of all of these links takes a long flippin' time. And so, so maybe that's why I love it so much. So this is a great one for earrings, but you can see where Janice used it in this strand here. And see how she used the center section, flanked by 2 of the rings here. And then she really echoed the design. Can you see how the shape of the spindle bead here and the shape of this long oval long view chain, how they're the same, really. That's why she's echoing it. Then this portion here with the 4mm Milky Celsian, see how they also visually look the same. Okay, so these are very similar in the design elements, and Janice has just repeated that element over and over. Now, the fancy pants. I know all y'all love the fancy pants chain as much as I do, and I think I might have named it. I don't know. I call things fancy pants all the time, and this really is a fancy pants chain. And you can see here again that same element of elongated oval is a theme running through this. But again, Janice just opened it up simply and used this section, the flat washer and the 2 ovals, and then just intermittently threw in some 6mm rose quartz. And you can see here, look at this strand. Let me kind of isolate this strand for a moment. See where this chain, how these parts are up here along the sides of the necklace, and then when it gets to the middle of the necklace, Janice just has the 6mm linked with rosary links together. That is a really important thing to note in the designing of this piece, okay? And let me loop it around again, just real quick, so you can see this. Shake it out here. When it is laying on you in a curve, right? It's really important that the bottom part of the curve lays nicely, right? So having kind of a heavy, especially if it's mixed, so having kind of a heavy portion right here may not look as graceful. And I think that's probably why she did it. I believe that would be, and knowing Janice's design sensibilities, I have a hunch that I'm right on that. So this really graceful curve is really pretty on this piece, and then using those elements up in the side of the necklace to echo these spindle beads again. We also have just a single strand of the little lentil, and Janice loves the little lentil like I love the shadow beads. I think she uses it a lot, and maybe she doesn't realize she uses it as much as she does. But again, this also dots a lot of the eyes in this piece. And it also, can you see how, again, it's visually about the same weight, right, as this 4mm bead is here, right? So visually, they carry the same weight, they balance each other out, okay? And you'll also see here how these sizes kind of graduate up, right? This little lentil, maybe it's a 4mm, maybe it's like a 3.5 or something like that, right? And then we graduate up to that 4mm, then the 5mm of this pearl, and then the 6mm of the rose quartz. So again, your eye, you're leading your eye up. So there's a variation, but there's a relationship here. It's like all of these guys are cousins hanging out, right? So they all look vaguely similar. You know that they kind of belong to the same family, but each are unique in their personalities, okay? And so that's the little lentil there. I also wanted to go over just really quickly before we start to break down how we actually start to make some of these pieces. We have some of the new, we have the chains, they come in all of the different flavors that we usually carry. This one is the Troika in the antique brass. Beautiful. This is another new one that Janice didn't use in the piece, but we call this one Feel Good, and that one is in the copper plate, though they come in all of them. But again, this Feel Good one, again, it has a hand wrought feel. And I had a heavy hand in picking out some of these new ones. So I was like, let me look at some handmade looking chain, right? Because when you make handmade chain at the bench, it takes forever. Not that I mind, because I love making chain. This is the Longview, but it's in shiny silver versus the antique silver. And can you see just the personality change of the chain itself when it's in shiny or matte? I think it's really cool. I love it. And then finally, this one, it's called Wired. I am going to have to make something with this because j'adore this one. And you can see in the earring that I'm wearing here, I'll lay that down. I used long and short. I used the coiled jump ring that we have from Nunn to break up that long and short here, but I want to go even further and work with this, what do we call this one, Wired. And this is in the matte gold, and the matte gold isn't something I visit enough, I think. So I need to think about that. They would look really nicely with the spindle beads, how pretty they look with that. But so this is a new one here as well. And again, using just a bit of this because it may be a little visually overwhelming with all of this, all of this coiled chain, or what we call wired, but mixing it up and putting it in between some of the less busy chains might make it work visually really, really well. So anyway, so these are our new ones here. And you can find them, of course, on beadshop.com under our chain category. Our chain category is quite robust, if I do say so myself. So let me get these out of the way, and let's talk about the nitty-gritty about actually making this piece up. And I see some chat over on the YouTube channel about how each of these strands could be worn by themselves as a necklace of themselves. And Janice mentioned over there that when she was making these, she was trying them on as an individual necklace each time. And I think that's something that is really important to take away from this exercise, is that each of these strands is as important as the strand next to it, right? So everything, I think, needs to have equal merit and equal weight, and be able to stand on its own, but again, also be able to sit nicely together. And so you can see I'm going to lay them out in the right order here. So this is the order of length of the pieces here. And so again, I think Janice was always very deliberate in how she ordered these strands as well. This strand on the outside has the heaviest elements, okay, here. And then this other outside strand also has some heavy elements, but they're, what do I want to say? They're offset, right? So that these oval pieces and these oval pieces don't run into each other, okay? Here, maybe we need a little visual break. So she placed the simple little lentil as kind of like a little, I don't know, little pause in between. And then she went to some more beaded strands. This Longview, the one with the Longview and the Milky Celsian, and then finished it off with the wire-wrapped pearls here as well. Now this is something I want to mention, and we're going to go over both of the loops and the wire wrapping. But what Janice used here, she used 24 gauge Arpera wire in the titanium finish, which I just adore. And I think when she had that strand laid out from before, that heavier strand, and when we looked at it visually and said, oh my gosh, it needs more air. Well, the wire wrap that gives this the most air is an actual wire wrapped loop rather than a rosary loop. So I think for these heavier elements, right? We needed a little more space in between, so hence the wire wrap. Also, pearls have a small hole, you guys, so doing just a loop, a rosary loop on this and connecting them loop to loop, they may not be as secure as you want them to be. So this is a very secure way of connecting, as well as a nice visual here. Now, these guys here, and Janice, I am guessing, it might even be on your notes here, that we used the 22 gauge, if I'm not mistaken, to do the rosary loops here for the Milky Celsian, okay? This 4 millimeter in the fire polish, it has, for the size of bead it has a relatively large hole, okay? So I can make that loop, that rosary loop, and have them connect nicely. I am also going to talk about making them nice and round and making them very secure. So we're going to talk about that in a second, okay? And then here, Janice also continued that look. Since these have the larger beads, she used that rosary loop here, and then she rosary looped these the spindle beads here. So she only reserved her wire wrapping here for the pearls. Okay. I was gonna see, there was a Suzanne, you made that comment about Janice's pieces or her notes looking at Karl Lagerfeld's drawings. I agree with that. I don't know. When I was a kid, even when I was a little kid, I would read such fancy magazines, I don't know, like Architectural Digest or the Gumps catalog or, the Vogue magazines. And I guess all of those like editorial notations really made an impression on me. So that's exactly right. You're picking up what I'm putting down with that feeling. So yes, dear Karl, may he rest on that. But he was a very interesting designer for sure, and I guess influenced me in ways that I don't even know. That's awesome. So let's take a look at how to put this together. Let's start actually with the back, because the back is actually what you do at the very end, right? But I also wanted to note that Janice has her briolette here. She wire wrapped this briolette with the 24 gauge. Sometimes I use 26 gauge with this. It just depends. The briolettes that we carry have a nice generous hole on them, but if you get a briolette that has a small hole, don't force the wire through. Wire is not like thread, right? It's not malleable. It won't kind of smush itself down to get into the hole. So don't force the wire. If it doesn't want to go through, just downsize to the next gauge below it. Okay, so what Janice did was, as I said, she used the 24 gauge here. She used the 22 gauge. Can you see how these all come together? Janice has, I'm going to turn this around. Janice has her little Janice design tag, so that when it ends up in the Smithsonian, people will know who to accredit it to, right? So she's got that. Pardon me. And she's got that little briolette to make it look pretty. And then we've done this rosary, or this wire wrap loop that connects to the clasp here. And I know that Janice just repurposed, pardon me, repurposed one of the jump rings. Pardon me, you guys, sorry. I have a cough drop here.
Check some water.
Whoops. No, I'm okay.
Right.
Let me just cough it out. It'll go in a second. Maybe I will have some water, Bran.
Okay.
Let's look at these while I motion. My voice will be back in just a second. Oh, sorry. There we go. I can feel it coming. Coming back. Thanks, Bran. Sure. Okay. There we go. And I'm back. So, Sorry about that. Yes, you guys, it's okay. I've got my water. Bam. Got my cough drop. I always have a stash right here. Bam. So what we did here was we did this wire wrap loop, and you can see that each of the little strands that are coming in here, they all connect. And what Janice did on a lot of these is she reserved the jump rings from the chain so that she could use them to connect so there's movement here. Okay, and that's really super important to have movement at the end of the piece, because if it's stiff, it's not going to move and it's going to hang funny on your neck. So reserve all of those jump rings. If you don't have jump rings in your stash, I don't know what you guys are waiting for, okay? And Janice is saying she didn't add jump rings to the list, but it doesn't really matter, you guys. You have so many jump rings in your chain that you can repurpose and use, okay? So let me start with this, okay? Let me move this over. And I'm going to start with, I think I'm going to start with this guy, since it's the outer one, okay? So let's do the troika. And we have, someone just asked, I saw it as it went by in the Facebook feed about getting jewelry tags done. I think we have them linked in one of our episode notes, but I'll have Drea relink them for you in the episode notes for this week. It's really, I think it's super important. You know, Janice says that she, she loves to put them on her jewelry. I have some that I do my finished jewelry with. So I think it's really important, especially if you kind of want to elevate your jewelry to a new level. So let's take a look and see what Janice did here. See how this guy that has this section, and we've got the jump ring here and the jump ring here. So remember how I mentioned that these rings open and close. Now the tools that I'm using one straight chain nose and my beloved bent chain nose here, okay? I'm going to open them up and I just grab it and open. I'm not pulling them out, I'm just twisting it open so that the jump ring maintains its shape, okay? And now I'm going to close it up. And so again, it's no big deal if you don't have the jump rings. No problem. You're just going to repurpose them off of this chain. These chains have so many rings that open and close. And so see how here I'm putting a little pressure, I'm going back and forth, and I'm closing that nicely, and I'm rubbing it with my finger to make sure not only is it in line this way on this plane, but it's also in line on this plane. It's not lower or higher, okay? I'm going to come around and I'm going to check the jump ring on this side to make sure it's closed. And a lot of these chains have jump rings that are oval, which is my favorite size, because, or my favorite shape rather, because with the ring, when you have the ring is actually, the opening of the jump ring is on the side. So it doesn't, I'm going to show you here. So it doesn't pull open. So if this is my jump ring here, right? It's not very even, but you'll forgive me on that. When we close that ring, and maybe you have your pendant or whatever you have here that's wire wrapped or whatever it is, okay? When this is pulling, if there's weight or if gravity is pulling down on this, this will stay closed once you've closed it nicely, right, in this nice closure, and it won't pull out, right? It's much stronger. Sometimes a round ring, if you get them and the gauge is too small, right? Maybe it's a really super skinny jump ring, and it's here, you know, if you have something that's connected to it, wire wrapped to it like this, that ring can pull open because the pressure is pulling on that ring to open it up. So we carry our jump rings, just as a little aside here. An 18 gauge jump ring, I think, is well nigh perfect. We carry it in a 5mm 18 gauge, and those are my favorite sizes. I use those to connect all the time. I think they're heavy enough in round jump rings that they're not going to just open up. We also have in a 4mm, I think they're a 20 gauge. They're a tiny little oval ring like this with the closure on the side. Those are 4mm, and I think they're 20 gauge. And those are also fantastic, especially if you have finer chain that you're using. That oval ring is just great, so it doesn't pull out, okay? And so we also have, like in my earring, I'll show you, we have these coiled jump rings. We have them both in the round, and we also have it in an oval. And if you want something that is kind of fancy pants, right, this is a great one to use as well. It's a little heavier. The gauge on this might even be 16 gauge. It's a little bit heavier. So you want to make sure that what you're putting it into is large enough, the link is large enough. But in this long and short chain, it fits just fine with plenty of movement. Okay, so let me put this earring back in my ear so I don't lose it. All right, so I've got my section here. Okay, now you guys know, and I haven't wire wrapped for a while. Wire wrapping is my spirit animal. Okay, wire and I have a long and lovely relationship. One of the first classes that I taught at Bead Shop when we were a brick and mortar. You know what, Brandon? Are my orange handled wire cutters, I think they're sitting on my work table, my soldering station. I think they're sitting there. So wire wrapping, I've been wire wrapping for, I don't know, close to 30 years, I think, right? So I have done this. I used to do it every day, right? Wire wrap, wire wrap, wire wrap. So what I'm going to do for you is make this look super easy, right? If you're new to wire wrapping, I don't want you to get discouraged. What I want you to do is practice, okay? That's practice makes perfect. You've got to build that muscle memory. So with this, we're going to start with a rosary loop, and then we're going to move to the wire wrapping. Sometimes I find that people they find that the wire wrap section is actually easier than making the rosary loop section. Because when you're making a rosary loop, you guys, what you need to remember is the wire is coming here, it loops around, and you want this loop here to be as round as you can get it, and you also need the end of the wire to meet where the wire starts to curve around here, so it's nice and closed, okay? So with a rosary loop, what we call a rosary loop, because rosaries traditionally are just linked together like this, right? With a rosary loop, I do a 22 gauge and larger, okay? So that means 22 gauge, 20 gauge, 18 gauge, those are all good. If I do a rosary loop with 24 gauge, it's a little iffy. So I'm going to do this little mark here like this. Your loop needs to be super small so that its strength, when it's closed so tiny like this, it's going to be a strong loop. Okay, so rule of thumb with a rosary loop is the smaller the loop is, the actual stronger it's going to be. If you have a giant rosary loop like this, it's easily pulled out of kilter here, right? So we want to make them small and even. And I know a lot of you guys are talking over on the YouTube chat about the one-step looper. I'm going to be super honest, you guys, but I'm also super old school. I'm not a fan, actually. I feel like the loops that they give you are a little too oval like this, and they never quite close. Okay, so I'm going to give you some tips to show you how I get the same size loop always, always. But again, I'm old school, so I just use these pliers, and I feel like my results are good. But again, like we always say here, you guys, you do you. Okay, so I'm going to cut a length of wire, and I'm going to use and see how I automatically come in and I start to straighten my wire out, right? That's my first step. Now you can use this wire straightening plier, okay, just like this. I'll straighten the wire while it's still on the spool. So I'll hold the spool in my hand, I'll close the nylon jaw plier over the top, and I'll run it through. And I'll run it through a couple of times. Now this serves a couple of purposes, right? It serves to straighten, but it also serves to work harden the wire slightly, okay? Every time we manipulate metal, okay, if we bend it, we hammer on it, we flatten it, it work hardens the wire, which in most cases is a good thing, right? We want to get that wire a little stiffer as we're working with it. So this is 22 gauge that I'm using to make the rosary loops with. So now I can give myself a little visual if I want. And I've got my little ruler here. I know this is about 1 inch, I'm going to say. About right here. And I'm going to count, this is maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it's just under 1/4 inch. I'm going to go just maybe under 1/4 like this, and I'm going to mark that. Okay, so that's 1/4. This is maybe maybe a 1/16 inch, maybe 1/8 inch over 1/4. So maybe that's about 3/8 inch right there, maybe. Your loops, depending on the gauge of the wire, the bit of wire that you leave here, that you cut off, it's either going to be about 1/4 inch or maybe slightly larger, depending on the gauge and depending on the size of loop that you want. Okay, so I always make a couple of test loops to get my measurements right. Okay, so I'm going to use my flush cutter. I'm going to cut a flush end, because when we make that loop, let me draw it out again, when we make that loop and the loop comes around, we want a nice flush end, not a sad kind of jaggedy pointy end to meet, okay, if that makes sense. This closure will be much more secure when it's flush against the wire rather than a cut that isn't flush and is pointy. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So now I'll come in, and I can use this as my guide if I want, and I'll grab the wire here at about 1/4 inch, and I'll make my right angle bend, and I'll really measure it. Now, I know that you're thinking, Kate, do you really do this? Actually, the honest answer is no, because I've been wire wrapping forever. But you can practice this way. And Tammy, get out of my head, Tammy Drennan. Yes, the problem is consistency. And so I do sometimes, if I want everything to be consistent, you can you can cut them all at the same size, so you're super consistent. But first we need to figure out what that length needs to be. So I actually bent this a little bit longer. You can see that's about 3/8 inch. That is actually probably about right. We also then want to look at the head of our tool. And if we come up with, on the head of the tool, we use that same little measurer. Let's say I'm going to go up about 1/4 inch on the head of the tool, which is, I'm marking it with my permanent marker. Kind of hard to see, but you can see that there. So I've got a little line, okay? So if I line up, I'm going to put it kind of to the side. Let me put the line on this side too so you guys can see it. Now again, from almost 30 years of wire wrapping, I have this in my head, right? But if you're not a wire wrapper, you will have like 30 seconds of wire wrapping behind your belt, right? But that's okay. Don't worry. You'll practice. So I'm going to try it with those measurements, the 1/4 inch up from the tip of the plier and about 3/8 of an inch of wire that's cut here. And I'm going to roll it over. So I've got that mark and I start to roll. See how I'm at the end of my wire. There's no wire coming up there. I open the tool and reposition and continue to roll around that mark. When I feel the wire hit, that's when I stop and I take a look at this. All right, so can you see what I've done here? See how this looks like a little P, like that? That means that where I looped the wire around the head of this tool was too big, right, for that length of wire that I cut. Because I bypassed, I can see here, that's where my angle was. That's where I had bent my wire here. So this loop, I need to cut much more wire here in order to have a loop that's about this size. And I think that's probably about, for this bead, you didn't know it was so analytical, right? For this bead, that loop looks about right, okay? So I'm going to just cut this away because it's no big deal. I'm not going to try and fix it. I'm just going to put it over there and say, hey, not so much. I'm going to give myself another little measurement here. So I know that 1/4 inch was a little bit short, that 3/8. So I'm going to go maybe, or no, you know what? I measured that incorrectly. That was an 1/8. This is the 1/4 inch right here. Oh, Kate, learn how to read your ruler. Sorry, you guys. This is the 1/4. I'm just going to erase that. There you go. This is the 1/4 inch. Because this, no, that's the 1/4. Gosh, I just can't see here. 3/8, 5/8 maybe right here. There we go. 1. Do you ever do this? Count your hash marks. 1, 2. That's my 3/8. Gosh, I need better glasses. That's the 3. So I'm going to go up a little bit closer, not quite the 1/2 inch, but let's try that. Okay. When you're watching, when all of these people are watching you and you can't quite measure. Nice work. And what Emily's saying is pretty close to matching. You know what, Em? I agree with that, you know. But also, I think that if you are, I'm just measuring it here, and then I'm going to grab it, and then I'm going to fold it, and then check it. I feel like if you're a newbie, and you can see that's about the right length, and you kind of want to give yourself something to shoot for, right, for consistency. And then I think as soon as you start to get really consistent with the loops, you're not going to go through all of this rigmarole for it, okay? So there's that a little over a 1/4 inch. It's about 3/8 of an inch, maybe even a little hair longer than that. And then I get that round nose plier, okay? I'm going to look at my mark again. I'm going to line it up with that mark. And I'm actually going to make it a little, just a hair tinier so that the wire is lining up actually to the left side of that mark. And I'm just going to go up and over the top, up and over, and yeah, boom, I can feel that wire has looped right into place. Can you see that? It's almost looped right into place. Let me fix it. There we go. Like so. Okay? So you can continue to play around with the sizes of the loops that you like. Okay? And actually, to my eye, that loop's a little big. Right? So let me give myself a flush cut again. I'm going to bend. I'm going to do it without any measuring. And roll it over. Yep. And that's exactly the size loop I like. So I'll tell you. There we go. It's nice and round. So I looped for this plier, and every plier is different. This plier, I went about 1/8 of an inch up on the head of the tool, and I cut a little less than 3/8, right in between, probably, probably about right there, probably about just below that 1/4 inch mark. Okay, so I'm going to start making some loops, and so for consistency's sake, okay, what I do a lot of times, is, and something like what Tammy was saying, I'll visually make a bunch. I'll kind of look at how much I want to leave, visually fix it into my memory. See how I bent it at that nice right angle? I know that I'm going to need probably about this much wire. So let me measure that, just so you guys know what that is. That's about 2 inches. So I'm going to make one. So I'm going to cut probably about 2.5 inches worth of wire. So I'm going to make one, make sure it's correct. Right? It's just perfect. When I don't measure, I know, for God's sakes. Get that wire, get that out of my hand. So see that? It's just perfect. So bend at that right angle over the top of the bead, cut away. Give that, I'm going to get it close to my eyes, you guys, so I can see it. Yeah, it's just a hair, little hair over, right between the 1/4 inch and 3/8 of an inch. Then I come up here and up and over the top and close it up. Okay, just like so. Now, when I want to make sure that these loops are in the same plane. Okay, just like that. And that doesn't look too bad. I think they look even. Let me see. This one's a little, not quite perfect. There we go. That's looking pretty good. So now, let me show you. I'm going to move this over. Move all that business over. Let me get some 22 gauge and let's go into production mode. So I'm going to do I'm going to cut 2.5 inches ish. So let me make 3 in rapid succession. 1, and this is how I do it. 2, 3. Once I've made one and I know it's right, then I can batch them. So I'll cut as many as I want to cut, okay? Then I'll put them down. I'm going to go through this quick and I'm going to talk you through it. I'll flush cut everything on this end, okay? Because this is the business end that I'm doing. So I'm going to flush cut them here, right? Flush cut them, bam. Then, gosh, there we go. Then I'll bend them, okay? So I'm going to use my chain nose plier. I'm going to visually, I'm going to look at the wire so I can see that I need, yep, that looks about the right length. And I'm just going to bend the wire over. Sorry, I know Brandon's trying to get in there too. I'm going to bend the wire up and over the top of the tool. And that actually looks a little short. I'm going to try it one more time. See, I'm thinking about it too much. Bend the wire. There we go. That looks right. Okay, so if I put it there and I just kind of visually check myself, and I can see, yep, that looks right. Is that one right? Yes, bend. Okay, so now those 3 look pretty uniform. Okay, and so you can lay them all out, make sure they're right. And if one's too long or whatever, you can trim it out at this point. All right, now I'll pick up my round nose plier. Now, the way that we make this rosary loop, we're going to grab it right at the end, okay, right at the end of the wire. And we've got a really good skill builder on this on the website, okay? Now I'm going to keep the tension. My left hand is kind of pushing away, my right hand's kind of pulling towards me. My thumb is in that angle of the rosary loop. And in short little steps, I open and close the wire and twirl the wire through the head of the tool until I can feel that wire hit, and I should have a perfect loop. Oh, it's almost perfect. Let me go one more. There we go. Perfect loop. Bam. Okay? So I'll do it again. End of the wire. Push my left hand away, pull my right hand towards me, keep that tension, and cycle it through. Cycle it through, cycle it through, cycle it through until it hits. See how I'm making small moves with my tool? I'm not making big, grandiose gestures, which is not my usual gig, right? Just small loops. Open, 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 and turn. Open and turn, open and turn. Because you want to shape that round rosary loop. Whoops, I went a little too far. You want to shape that round rosary loop to the round head of your tool. So look, those are pretty uniform. Those are pretty clear. Okay? So now we'll get our beads. 1, 2, and 3. And we'll batch those on. So I've got this one on. Done. And now, and once I put it on, and I'll bend it. Okay? And I'll get this one. I'll put it on. I think. There we go. And I'll bend it. Notice how I'm bending the wire so that the loop is facing in the right direction. Okay? When I make the other loop. Okay? These are all little habits that you'll get into. Okay? So there's our 3. Done. Now we need to cut the remaining wire off. So I'm just going to come in with my tool and visually I go, yep, that's about right. And there it is, that one, and that one. So now I look at the soldiers and I say, yep, those look even. Okay? All right. So now I'm just going to loop them over. That same thing. I'll hold the bead, end of the wire, in that same spot on the plier. I pull my right hand towards me, my left hand away, kind of keeping the tension, and I can feel, yep, that went over, and yep, it's centered, and yes, it's closed. Now it's closed. Okay, 1 and 2, this guy here, right hand pulling towards me, left hand pushing away, and I can feel when it closes. It's not quite right. There we go. Keep that tension. Boom. Now this guy. Notice, you guys, this is something that happens that I want to show you that may be happening to you. If I start my loop and I don't start my wire, I'm going to intentionally make this a little bit bigger. I don't start looping my wire at the very end. See what happens? See how you have that not curved loop, right? So we need to really make sure that when you make your loop and you start to curl it over, that that wire is sitting in the middle of the head of your tool. So it makes that nice rounded C shape. Can you see that? See how I collapsed it a little bit, but can you see how that's nice and round versus this side that has that flat spot? Okay.
I'm gonna put it down on the white just so that
oh sure,
it's a
sure,
nice
sure.
good background. So
Let me
really get a good look at it.
There we go.
Yeah. Excellent.
And so I'm gonna do this one. Okay. Now we're gonna connect these. And make sure it's closed. I close my loops fully. I know that some of you don't. I know that some of you go, oh, I'm just gonna close it and then I'm going to put my piece on it, then I'm going to continue to close it, okay? But here's my argument for not doing that, okay? When you're shaping your loop, you want to complete that loop so this curve and this curve are exactly the same, okay? And the way that you do that is you keep shaping that wire all the way around the tool, okay? When it's time to connect them, we simply, if this is the open side right here, we simply lift that side, lift it up, so it creates kind of something that kind of looks like this, that's open, right? We slide, and yet it's still nice and round, so maybe it looks more like that, maybe. But we lift it up. Then, after we've put whatever it is in there, our chain or a wire wrap piece or whatever it is, then we lift it back down, or we pushed it back down, okay? And Emily's saying, and Emily's exactly right, the loop is not finished until it's closed. So finish that loop, and then you've got to reopen it. So let me show you exactly what I mean by that. Where's my little section that I've cut? Here it is. So here's the section that I've cut, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach my bead. How did Janice do it? She attached a bead, and then she attached the length of chain there, okay? Now, for something like this, we need to make a decision. We need to decide what we want to open and what we want to close, okay? This jump ring opens and closes here, and this ring opens and closes here, okay? So you just need to decide, and it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, really, for this. You could open the jump ring, or you could open the loop. I feel like it's faster and easier for me to open the loop on my beaded part. Okay, so let me hold this here, and I'm holding it tightly with a firm grip. I want to make sure you can see this, and I can see where my loop has come around. See where I'm grabbing it with my plier? I'm grabbing it right at the end of the wire there. I'm not coming way up here and grabbing the loop. I want this loop to really stay nice and round, so I'm just protecting that wire by holding it at the end, okay? Now, all I'm going to do is, watch, I'm going to hold this, I'm going to lift. See that opening there? See how the loop is still round, right? If I had come in and done this, let me make sure that you can see this. If I grab it here and I pull it out, see that? Wah, wah. So sad, right? But if you lift it, now I don't have a good one. Here we go. If you lift it like this, you can simply pull it back the same way you opened it, and the loop will stay nice and round. Okay, so let's connect it. I'm going to slide this on. I'm going to let gravity pull that chain away from me so it's hanging behind my finger. I'm going to come in, grab that wire just where I did before, and then put it back down. You're the boss of this wire. And sometimes I come in with the tips of my plier and I give it a little hug just to make sure that everything's in the same plane. That's it. That final little light touch, this isn't a lifeline. Hold your wire gently here, right? We don't want to mark it, but we want to be firm. Hold it with some, I don't know, determination, whatever, but the courage for your convictions, but don't smash it so much that you're leaving a mark, okay? And so now I'm going to come in and I'm going to attach the chain on the other side. Hey, Bran, I think I need my computer plug. It's by my desk. I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm going to come in and get this chain from over here. So I'm going to do the same thing, opening up that jump ring. Let's free that piece of chain. I don't have to cut the loop. I can just open it up. So we can save so much of this. And then what did Janice do? We connected it to that chain. So we kept this jump ring here on the end. So I'm going to close it so it doesn't get lost. And now I'm going to open this up, lift it. Whoops, wrong side. I know right away if it's the wrong side. And I can't tell which is the opening side because it's closed so well, if I do say so myself. I lift, slide that bad boy on, push it down, bam. And that's all I needed. Okay, so this connection is complete. The loops on my bead are large enough that that there's movement there, but they're not so large that they'll open up, right? So we'll keep going. We'll do the same thing here. All right. And so I want to show you, I don't want to run out of time. I want to show you some more. I know that this was a full-on wire masterclass. I haven't even talked about measuring, but you guys don't mind if we go a little bit longer. I want to show you. Okay. So there's this. Alrighty? And so you continue with that. Now, this is the, and you can see how hard that is. I mean, you'd think a rosary loop is pretty darn easy to do. Not so much, right? So there's the rosary. Let me show you, let me get my 24 gauge and let's look at the wire wrap loop. Again, we have a great tutorial on the wire wrap loop, and I feel like we do the wire wrap loop much more than we do the rosary loop. But again, I'm going to cut, this is maybe 2.5 inches of wire, maybe almost 3, okay? And so the way that this differs is on the wire wrap loop from the rosary loop, you have a little neck there that you've wire wrapped around. And so the kicker with this technique is that you want your wire wraps to be even on both sides. You don't want like 2 wire wraps over here and like 4 over here, right? We want 3 and 3. At least that's what our goal is, okay? So there's an easy way for me to do that. First off, I just come in and I have about 2/3 of my wire here to about 1/3 here, and I just bend at that 1/3. Kind of arbitrary, but I'll bend. Again, 24 gauge wire here, kids, okay? Now I get that round nose plier and I'm gonna loop it up and over the top of the round nose in the same place, because I want my loops to be all fairly even, I guess, similar throughout this project, okay? So I could, now that I know that this is my place, I could get my Sharpie and mark it there, but you know, once you've done this over and over, you're going to be okay. So I'm going to take this wire and I'm going to go up and over the top, conforming the wire to the shape of the plier, okay, so it's nice and round. I open the tool, drop it down to the bottom jaw, and can you guys see how the wire has come all the way around? It's nice and tight, and I'm going to push this underneath with my finger and on top there, okay? Now, if this is also, I'm going to take the loop out and I want you to take a look at this loop, okay? See how the wire that's coming from below the loop here, see this? See how it's slightly over to the left? It's not centered below this loop. This is why when you're wire wrapping, your loops tilt. Okay, so just one tiny little step of centering that wire, and we call this like the little head. We center that head over the body or the spine right here. This is the little scarf that's waving out, right? So I'm going to come in. I'm going to just very carefully, and it's, again, not a big grandiose movement. I know that, how funny that I'm not being grand. But I come in, let me hold it here, and I give it just, see that? Just barely a little turn. Now let's look. See how the scarf now is really blowing in the wind? But notice how the head of the loop is on top of the body of the wire. That is going to give you a nice straight up and down loop. Okay, so let me wire wrap it. I'm going to grab it here. I'm going to keep this in my round nose, holding it gently. I'm going to get my bent chain, okay? And with my bent chain, I'm going to grab the end of that wire and I'm going to move it 180 degrees around. And I'm going to stop there. And I'm going to check and make sure that that first wrap is nice and tight. If it's not nice and tight, kids, stop, push it up, put it in the right place, because if you continue to wire wrap with this first wrap being wonky, your whole wrap is going to be wonky. Okay, so I'm going to come in, wrap that 180 again, boom, and then underneath, wrap it around, boom, and up around the top. Lay those little wraps one next to the other. There we go, and now I've got 3. I actually have about 2 3/4 of a wrap, because what I do next is I come in, I get my wire cutter, and I'm going to angle that wire cutter. I'm going to angle it, and then I'm going to show you so you guys can see it. I'm going to angle that wire cutter so the back part of the cutter is really coming in at a nice tight angle there. I'm going to come in, and then I'm going to clip. Now I have just the tiniest bit of burr here. I'm going to use my bent chain nose to come in, and the technical term for this is smushing the wire down. I'm going to smush that wire down, just gently curve it so it comes in around, and that's the wrap. And that, in the words of Martha Stewart, that's a perfect wrap. Okay, if I do say so myself. Martha does like to call things perfect, doesn't she? She's so funny. More props to you, Martha. I heart you in a big way. Now, what we're going to do is, you guys, we have to make, well, we don't have to, but we want to. The goal is we want to make this section and the section we're going to wrap next the same size, right? So I use my plier to measure it. I go just to the tip of my plier, just about, and you'll have to play with your pliers and figure out what works on your pliers, okay? And then I'm going to bend over the top of the tool with my index finger. See that there? And when I turn, visually, I can see it's a little long. I know it's a little long. I didn't go quite at the tip, so I'm going to take it out of frame. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to straighten it up. And I'm really going to go to the tip. I'm going to try it one more time. See that? There we go. And now I'm going to bend at a right angle and turn it to the side. Yep, can you see the difference? I mean, it's slight, but that's just slightly small, just slightly smaller. Okay? So now I'm going to do the same thing. Put in the round tool. Now this time, when you center the loop, since the bead's in the way, you're going to have to center the loop a little bit more. See how when I bring it down and around, and then underneath, I want to make sure that that's the same size, like this, nice and tight. I'm going to turn it here. See how the head is not centered at all over this body. Okay, so I need to come in with my tool, and again, they're small movements. Rotate that loop over just a bit, but you can tell it's right because the scarf here is now really blowing in the wind. You see that? Now sometimes, instead of leaving it in my round nose plier, I'll grab the loop to keep it stable in my chain nose. Let's see if this is going to be right. I'll get my wire, bring it around at 180. Oops. Grab it a little further down in the body of the tool, gives me a little more grip. There we go. 180, 180. Sometimes if it's thinner gauge and I'm feeling kind of strong, I'll wrap it with my fingers instead. You can do that too. And I'll come in, I'll stop just before, there's just a little tiny bit of room there. So I'll stop, clip away the extra, done, and poke that end in. And see how my bent chain just sits nicely on there. Okay, so that's it. That and that. Let me get a little closer to my eyes to make sure I can see what's happening, and then I'll put it back into frame. There we go. Can you see those two? Done. It's a pretty good loop. So now, as I go to create this piece, what Janice has done is she's linked piece after piece after piece. So don't forget, and I'm going to do another one super fast so you can see me actually connect. And I'm going to do this in real Kate time. When you're connecting, sometimes I get super excited and I go, oh, I'm wire wrapping. Look at how everything looks so good. Oh, I'm so terribly clever. Well, and you get so excited that you wire wrap this and you wire wrap it closed before you add your other piece, right? So the first wire wrap you can always close, like I did here, okay? It's the second wrap that if you don't connect it, that means you're in trouble. Let me close. I need to get this a little closer to my field of vision. Sorry, you guys, to close it up. Sorry. I just can't see that far anymore. And then I will, there we go. I'll put on my bead. And if you have to detail it, that little end is giving me just a little bit of sass. So I'm going to use my bent chain to push it up into place and then use my bent chain to push it down. Because you know who's the boss of that wire? That's right. That's right, kids. Me. Now I'm going to add my pearl.
And Jackie was asking, when you clip away the extra, is that still a flush cut?
It is. A cut, Jackie, on what I call kind of, I guess, the live wire or the wire that's going to be used is always a flush cut for me. Always, always. So there's my bead. I'm going to come in. I'll measure with the tip of my tool up and over. This is the part where I get super excited. I'm like, oh, I'm wire wrapping. Yes. Look at that. Look at my loop. It's working. Yay. And then I start to wire wrap here. And then like halfway through, I go, wait, what happened? So I put it on. And Janice is saying, you know, it's fine. You can, I also made that loop a little too big. Let me close it up. That if you do make one that's closed, you can just connect it with another one on both sides. You can. But it's a good habit to get into, like with a rhythm. Like if you wire wrap the first loop closed, that you know on the second loop, you always have to connect it. Okay? So this is also, I think, where people stumble a little bit with wire, is wire wrapping a loop and keeping that loop, the integrity of that loop, nice and round, but still being able to get in there and hold it tight when you're wrapping. So can you see how I've used the tip of my chain nose plier and how it's keeping that loop nice and stable and even there? And then the dangle, gravity's taking care of the dangle over there. Now I've exposed where I'm going to wire wrap. This is going to be a little long. These wire wraps won't match, I can tell already. It's because I'm talking and wire wrapping. Yep, see? It's just one wrap too long. In the grand scheme of things, it's not the end of the world at all, because visually, no one's going to be up close and personal and counting your wire wraps. If they are, that means that they shouldn't be criticizing what you're doing because you're within punching range, right? No, I don't know. Then you can just make those loops, make sure they're going the same way, and there you go. Okay, so there we have it. Okay. And so some of you are saying, yep, Emily says that she connects always on the first loop, which is fine too. You can always decide which is your connector loop. For me, I like to wire wrap the first loop completely and connect on the second. You may want to connect on the first and leave the second one open. Whatever, I would just find what's consistent for you, okay? And then what Janice did, of course, is she wrapped, and then she used that connector from the Fancy Pants chain. I have a piece of Fancy Pants right here. And on this one here,
I think that was actually...
No, is it this one? Oh, it's this one. You're right.
Troika.
It is. She mixed the Troika. Good one, Brandwin. Well spotted. So that is an element from the Troika, and this is an element from the Fancy Pants. So with the Fancy Pants, though, what you could do, I'm going to open this one up. What she did was she wire wrapped directly. I'm going to open this one up so you guys can see it. See this fancy pants chain right here? Come on. She wrapped it right in there without a jump ring. So I would connect this on the second one, okay? But with this one, this oval, we can open it up, and I think Janice used the jump ring to, no, she did not, but I could if I wanted, okay? So these are ones where you need to connect, you need to anticipate, like I did not anticipate this one. You need to anticipate where you're going to add it. Okay, so it's all one all-inclusive loop. Now we're getting a little over time, but I did want to address graduating on this just real quick before we part ways, because I think it's really important for that. And you know what I'm going to do? Janice, I'm going to commit a sacrilege, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut this link away. Oh my gosh, what did Kate just do? There we go, because I want to show you how this closes. There we go. All right. So here are the ends, like so. Let me get this and this and this. I've made such a mess today, you guys.
Always part of the creativity.
Right? So this you need to make some decisions once you get all of your pieces together, okay? And the decisions you need to make are length, what and how the order is going to go that you want them to sit in. And so the most important measurement that you're going to do with this necklace is the one that sits closest to your chin, to your neck, right? So this one is the shortest one. So that's the length that you need to really decide on what that length needs to be. I'm going to measure, and I think Janice actually has it on her notes. So I'm going to get her notes out. I'm just going to say, I'm not going to even worry about the time because I don't want to cut you guys short, literally. So see here what she has on her editorial notes, that she did this shortest length, that's 17 inches. This second one is 18. This one is 20, 22, and the longest there is 24, okay? And so one of the things that I think is really helpful sometimes when you do this is if you have a neck, we have some of these necks that, you guys have seen these before, these necks that we have, right? Or you can grab those anywhere, or, you can have like a little dress bust or something, or just keep measuring on yourself, all right? But notice that this length, this 17 inches, note that this clasp ending is going to add almost 2 inches, right? 1.5 to 2 inches. So you also want to take that into consideration when you're doing this. So this one, Janice did, this is 17 inches. So what I would do is I would lay everything out as you are completing it, and I would see how things are going to lay and line up in the middle, because this necklace has a definite symmetrical design. Can you see that? How there's loops here, then there's the closed oval here, and then there's a certain amount of the pearls wire wrapped here, okay? So I know that this is the middle. So then I look at this one, I lay this one out, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these loops. So I know that if this is my center point here, this is probably, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is our center point right here, okay? So it gives me something to go from. So that's my center, okay? And then here, this lentil, it doesn't really matter with the lentil because the lentil is all the same. your little lentil. So we lay that one. I know, I think I gave everybody a fright with cutting that apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't worry, you guys. We're bringing the drama on Facebook Live, Bead Shop Live, bringing the drama. Then we know that these pearls are also in the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the center. And it looks like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like this is the center here. Okay. So then you want to lay it all out, make sure that everything's right, and then the way that I would do this is I would attach one strand, I would probably attach everything, whoops, I would probably attach, sorry I didn't put my phone on, let me get you back here. I didn't put my phone on Do Not Disturb, so I actually just got a phone call from Lisa Kelly, which is funny. Sorry about that. I turned her off. Go away, Lisa Kelly. So the way that I would connect it, want me to move it over, Brand? Okay. The way that I would connect it is I would get everything prepared with my little closures here, right? So I know that this one here that has this link, I need a jump ring, so I'd put the jump ring on there. I'd put the jump ring on here, and I'd get this set, and I'd put all of these on at the same time, okay, and wire wrap that close, so I know that this one is done. And I'm not sure, JP, if that's how you did it, or if you connected one at a time, but really, this wire wrap closure is kind of the last thing that I do, okay? So I'm going to do the wire wrap closure for the other side. So let me get the 22 gauge. 22 gauge is here. Janice also said in her editorial notes that it needs to be a nice, generous loop because we've got to have movement. So we've got to remember that part, okay? So I'm going to bend at that angle. I'm going to give myself a nice bend here. And when Janice says a nice, generous loop, we mean a nice, generous loop like that, right? I come in, I make it the same way as I did the other ones. And I'm going to count to see how many wraps Janice did here. She did about 3. So actually I want it to go this way. So I'm going to give myself 3 wraps. And sometimes I switch around. Sometimes I like to hold the plier with my non-dominant hand and wrap with my dominant hand. Or sometimes I switch it up going the other way. You decide what works nicely for you. There we go. If it's a little off, see how that's just slightly off? I get the tips of my tool and I bring it together. Okay? But you know what I did? I was so excited showing you this. What didn't you do, Kate? That's right, everybody. I didn't connect it. Let's cut it away. Let's do it again. See, I still do it too. I get so excited about the darn wire wrapping, I forget everything else. All right, up and over, across. Now let's add them. Then we'll wire wrap it closed, right? So I'm going to start with this bottom one because that was the whole point of this, right? So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to add this up. So what Janice said, she did add them one at a time. She said she held each one up and added it. And she said the nice thing about wire wrapping is that you can add a bead or 2 in the center, and that's why she has 11 pearls in the center. That's great, JP. It's really true. You could put this together and you could say, oh, wait a minute, that's not right. You just cut it open and add something in the middle. Okay, so it's not the end of the world when you, but work it however you want to do it. Okay, so this one goes on. Then next is our friend, the, whoops, make sure it's going on the right way. the rose quartz, right? That goes on. Then our little lentil friend, trying to get to where you can see me, Brandon, and stop moving all over, right? Then our milky Celsian. I like how Janice used, can you see here at the end, instead of using a jump ring, she used one of the links from the Longview chain. I think that's what that's from. And she just did her rosary loop right in there. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a jump ring. It can be one of those guys. So don't worry. And then this one, it looks like it just went on as the wire wrap loop. So I'll put it on. Okay. And again, you can see now that generous loop, how there's lots of movement here. Okay. Lots of movement here. Okay. Now I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to hold this like I did before. See how I hold that all together like that? And now I'm going to wire wrap it. Now what did I say? 3 wraps-ish, right? So here's this. Let's go for 3. Really like 2 2/3. 1, 2, really deliberately placing these wraps where I want them to go. There we go. Now I'll clip away. Yeah, don't forget the clasp. Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Lynn. You're a peach. Yes, no, exactly. Because again, I get super excited. So there's that. Let me do this. Now, very simply, I had the rose quartz piece. It has now gone forever. I'll get another one. There we go. The rose quartz. And I'm going to put this on. I'm going to check and see what JP did. Okay, so see on this side, Janice connected all of this with a jump ring. So I can be okay with, I can just wire wrap this closed and then use a jump ring to attach my loop. Okay, so I can take the pressure off. Now, Janice is also mentioning something. If you have a pendant of any kind, before you close the second side, you want to make sure and lay everything out so that it's correct and not bunched up. Sorry, this is such a big necklace and the camera has such a small view. But you can hold it up and make sure it's right, okay? And since I'm connecting this with a jump ring, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to go ahead and wire wrap it closed. What Janice did here on this side was she added that little briolette. So she wire wrapped that briolette closed and then she attached it with a jump ring along with her jewelry tag. So you can do that afterwards too. But I'll bend up and over the top. No need to connect because I'm going to use a jump ring. So I'm going to go ahead and wire wrap this closed. I'll keep it in the loop. This loop is a little bit smaller. And notice how when I'm wrapping, you guys, even when I'm wrapping with my hands here, I'm keeping everything at right angles. Again, I made that neck just a little too long, but that's okay. It'll never be noticed. Clip. Gosh, I'm really going over today, you guys. I'm sorry, but it's such an epic project. I really wanted to make sure that you saw everything. So thanks for hanging in there with me. It looks like everybody's still here. So thank you. We're almost done. I put that on. I think Janice used a round ring that I probably took off and cast away somewhere. So I'll just use this smaller one. This will work. But you probably want your jump rings to match. But this is one that was just lying on the table. And so that's it. That's all she wrote. And see how when I close the toggle like this, having this single bead right here allows the toggle to really pull on and sit nicely. If you have too much of a bunch of things up here, the toggle won't work. It needs a little room. It needs something skinny to come in and close off. So there, kids, you have the closure. Okay? Okay, so the wire that I used here, the only time I used 24 gauge in this project, you guys, is with the pearls. Okay, that's it. Everything else, the pearls and this briolette, 24 gauge. Everything else, all the rosary loops are done with 22, and then this closure up top here is also done with 22 gauge. Okay, so that's it. That's it. That's all she wrote. So I hope, you guys, I hope I have not left anything out. Let's look at Janice's editorial here one more time. And you can use, you guys, we have so many pearls. You can use, I had Brandon grab pearls with Wild Abandon from our pearl place. But look at some of the pearls that you could use. And again, all of these, you guys, I would wrap with 24 gauge. Okay, I would do this with 24. And you decide, if you love what Janice did, then do it. But you can also just come in and jump in with your own colorways. I love the spindle beads. We carried the spindle beads in a bunch of different colors, but you could also substitute. You could substitute the check rondelles that we carry. We could substitute the English cuts, would look amazing in this, especially if you use a larger pearl. Especially these rougher pearls would really look great with some English cuts in there. You could also change the color of the piece. Janice, of course, used the antique silver. But look at how beautiful the brass is. So good. And I think some of you earlier were saying, what if we mixed our metals? We didn't use this Feel Good chain in the project, but you could. And you could certainly mix your metals with these, right? I am a big mixed metals fan. So you don't have to keep just to one colorway, nor do you have to just keep to the exact same beads. I love when Janice uses these fine little small beads like this in a chain, but I also love working with the bigger chains, bigger beads as well. So I might size all of this up for a piece for me and maybe make 3 strands instead of 5. It just depends on what you want to do, okay? And what Janice is saying is, let the chain kind of talk to you, in quotes, right? And mirror the style and shapes of the chain with the shapes and the colors of the beads. That's really the crux of this whole design, is let the shape of the bead mirror the shape of the chain that you're using, okay? And so just the rest of the kind of the notes on this, the total necklace length, now I've got a coffee stain on here, but I think it looks better for it. The total necklace length on this is 26 inches. You want to check that all of your jump rings are closed here and not open. Choose beads that complement the shapes of the beads, which are here. Complement the shapes of the chain links. You could make this adjustable instead of a toggle. You could use a lobster claw clasp and chain, or a swivel lobster is great for that. And then here, hold each strand up to check that the center curves around gracefully before you combine everything. So really fantastic notes on these, Janice. Thank you so much for this. And as I said, we'll include these notes in the episode notes, but you can look at these notes right now on the project page for this under our Stones of Wisdom project, and it's called Longing. Okay, Brandon.
Are we switching
Brandon's
the
looking
camera?
at me like, I need lunch.
I'm hungry.
I know. So let's do it.
But this has been fun, and
It has been fun.
I'm thinking blues would be real.
Yeah, it would be great. There's so many
little dusty ones.
things. And
Spindles.
Beth, you're saying that pearls are such a summer bead. They are such a summer bead. You know how much I love my pearls. I'm wearing the pearls from Kate's mix, my first mix a while back. And then these are some from my stash, but they're very similar to some of the ones that we carry. That I think this is the blue-gray potato or something. We have them. They're all on our pearl page. In light of this being such a great project for pearls, today, if you've gotten your newsletter, okay, and if you're new to watching us, thank you so much for joining us. You know, it is the your word of mouth and you sharing this video and you commenting and all of that that really makes this broadcast so great. But if you have not signed up for our newsletter, go over to beadshop.com, sign up for our newsletter, and you get specials, you get special coupons, we do giveaways. We did a great giveaway this past weekend, all kinds of fun stuff, news of what's coming up. So in the newsletter this morning, we are having a pearl sale. So if you add Pearl 30 to your order, today is the 24th of April, 2019. This pearl sale goes through tomorrow, the 25th. If you're watching this on replay and you've missed this sale, don't worry. Go to the website, sign up for the newsletter. You'll get another great deal right in your email inbox. So that's my story. I hope that you guys had a good time. I'm going to finish with some of the comments. I think you guys had a good... Oh, and let me put it up. It's just laying here on the table. I should have put it up. Here we go. There we go. I think that looks good. And it just naturally, look, I just picked it off the table and put it on the neck. It naturally just flows so beautifully. It was really, really great. So Janice, thank you so much for this fantastic design. I just adore it. Thank you for trusting me to interpret it for you. But I think we had a really good masterclass in wire wrapping, in sizing the necklace. So I can't wait to see what you guys do. For Free Tip Friday, I'm going to do kind of a special fun thing. We're going to talk a little bit just about beads in general. You know, we carry a lot of beads here at beadshop.com. So I'm going to share a few things from my archive, a few designs from my archive, and just a few ideas about how to mix and blend beads. So that'll be on Free Tip Friday this week. So have a really fantastic week, rest of your week. I will see you right here on Friday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time for Free Tip Friday. We love to see what you make. Keep in contact. Have a great day, you guys. See you soon.